guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we are talking about how we lived in hotels for 6 months and these are our regrets. So we've done a couple of videos about what we enjoyed about staying in a hotel for living in hotels for 6 months. But there are also some downsides to it, and a lot of people asked us about that, so we thought we'd make a video and share all of those with you at once.
Yeah, we did stay in hotels for 6 months, basically in Vietnam, Japan, Taiwan, and Singapore. We had an amazing time, but we did have some moments where we just were kind of regretting it. And so this is what happened and why we regret it. And I think the first regret that we had was constantly living our lives dictated by the hotel schedule and not by ours. So the times we were eating were a pretty big deal, which would also dictate when you would need to go to bed and when you would need to wake up, because if the hotel only served breakfast till 10 a.m. and then you didn't want to get up that early, you either had to make the decision to miss breakfast or get up earlier than you wanted, and that kind of became pretty monotonous after a while.
Yeah, and you know, if you've seen our other videos, you know that we had pretty much lounge access for almost all of the 6 months that we stayed in hotels, which meant that we got breakfast, afternoon tea, which was usually pretty close to a lunch, and then cocktail hour, which almost always was basically a dinner. So the hours were already set by the lounges that we had access to, which was great because we didn't have to pay extra for food. But the having to, like you said, adjust our schedules to whatever the schedule was for the food being served was kind of a little bit challenging because it didn't resemble our normal schedule.
That was the hard part, is that we did have to adjust ourselves to accommodate this. And it was something that we didn't really enjoy that much. And it kind of goes with this next one, which is what we termed food acquisition. And so, like, imagine you're in Japan and you're staying at the Holiday Inn, which is one thing we did, and there was no lounge there was no included breakfast. So for the 10-12 days we were in Sendai, Japan, we knew every day we woke up we had to go acquire breakfast, we had to go acquire lunch, we had to go acquire dinner. So that meant leaving the hotel 3 times per day, or kind of just saying, you know what, let's just eat meals out of a 7-Eleven today, and we'll buy up 3 of them and stick them in the fridge and eat them cold, or try to warm them up with a hair dryer, or just some kind of nonsense like that. It's like, it doesn't sound bad, but when you're doing this for 6 months, the food acquisition becomes a major component of your happiness.
Yeah, now thankfully we didn't have to do that as many times because like I said, we mostly had access to the lounge, but a few of them, like this one in Sendai, Japan, was like 10 days. And you know, when you just have basically a kettle, a refrigerator, and you know, like you said, a hair dryer to warm stuff up, it makes it a little bit difficult. And if you just want to have like a pajama day or something, or you want to just stay in and get some work done or whatever, it's hard to do because you got to go get dressed and go out into town and, you know, figure something out. Yes, the places are usually pretty close, so it's not a big deal, but you know, it could be a pain to do that. So definitely something to think about, and definitely something on our regret list.
Next one is going to be the lack of a separation of space. So when we're in this apartment, we have a bedroom, we have a living room, a kitchen, and we can be on different schedules. I could be, you know, doing something on my computer, she could be watching a show in another room, or just whatever you have. But if you're in a hotel, for the most part, we did get some suites, and that was great. But if we didn't have a suite, there was that lack of separation where maybe someone wanted to sleep and someone didn't want to sleep, and that can become a little bit of an issue.
Yeah, it can, because we have a little bit different schedules. I usually go to sleep a little bit earlier than you and get up a little bit earlier than you. So that leaves us with you staying up a little bit later, and if there's no separation of like the living space and the sleeping space, you know, it's basically like the equivalent of a studio apartment, everything in one. It does make it harder to have that, like, you know, either quiet time to read or privacy or whatever the case may be. I mean, we're used to being together basically 24/7 after almost 7 years of traveling full time. So it's not that part, it's just the natural way that we live. again, this was something else that altered that because we didn't have a separation of spaces, so that does make it a little bit challenging.
And because we were in hotels, we were booking them for shorter times than we normally do. We may book, an apartment for 2 months. We weren't really staying in any of the hotels for 2 months. So it meant moving around a lot more, and it meant packing up. And one thing we don't like is packing up and moving. And so when you're packing up and moving a lot, it does become a little bit of a challenge.
Yeah, now I will say I'm actually very surprised that we didn't lose something in that, because we are not used to moving around that much. We, like you say, stay in places usually for at least a month, but usually 2. The only hotel we stayed in for longer than that, there was one hotel we stayed in for 40 nights in Vietnam, and that was the only one that we stayed in for that long. Everything else was usually like around 2 weeks or so. So that's a lot of moving around.
Yeah. So when would it be a good time to live like this? Will we do this again? Under what circumstances should you think about doing this? And there are some times when you should probably do this. It is in countries where there are not good Airbnb or long-term apartment rentals, or when you are just doing quick touring. You're spending 3 days in this city, 3 days in this city. Some expensive places, like if you're going to go into the heart of London, you're probably not going to stay there for 2 months, or same with Paris. You're going to want to get a hotel. There are also countries where there aren't good hotel options, or there aren't good Airbnb options, so you're going to want to choose one of these methods. Now, the countries where we think it's great to live in hotels are Japan, Singapore, Indonesia, and Vietnam. We would not do this in countries like Italy, Malaysia, or Thailand, because they have such amazing other opportunities available.
Yeah, I think that's the big difference, is knowing when to do this and when not to. And we kind of booked all of that travel close together because they were going to be close together in the same region where we were wanting to visit. And we did want to kind of cover a lot more ground this time around. And we thought, well, if we're going to be moving that much, we might as well switch to the hotels. So that kind of made sense. But like you said, for these other places like Italy, Malaysia, and Thailand, you can find Airbnbs that are way better deals, and you get exactly what you want: your own schedule, separation of space, kitchen, all that kind of stuff, for a really good price.
Yeah, for instance, in Japan, we have stayed in some Airbnbs before, but we did find that the hotels we were renting were actually bigger than the Airbnbs. So it just does not make a lot of sense to get an Airbnb in a lot of regions of Japan, especially Tokyo, because they are so small. You'd actually be better off in a hotel. So is this worth it? Would we do it again? I think the answer to that is yes, but you need to know and plan for your limitations, or you might be unhappy. So think through some of these things. What of those apply to you? Maybe both of you, or if you're going by yourself, maybe you wake up at 7 a.m. every day and breakfast won't be a problem. Maybe it will. So think through some of those things. It'll help you to dictate. Now, we were really happy with what we did overall. Like we said, we totally enjoyed it. We earned some amazing perks, points, lounge access, which we are really enjoying this year, and we're going to get to enjoy that next year as well.
Yeah, I think that was a big one for us, and again, one of the reasons why we planned these like this, because we thought, gosh, the earlier in the year we could earn these statuses with these hotel brands, the longer we can enjoy them for, because you get them for the rest of the year that you earn them in, and the whole next year. We thought, well, it'd be silly not to, because we do use hotels, depending on where we're going. The place we're going to determines if we're going to do either a hotel or an Airbnb, and the things that you get, the perks that you get with these elite statuses really does make a huge difference when we travel.
Yeah, so if you enjoyed this video, please let us know in the comments, give us a like, and we will see you on the next video.